There's a variety of skills that we're looking for. One is basic verbal skills, the ability to communicate, to think quickly on your feet and to respond, to be an active listener. I mean, it's one thing to be able to verbalize, but it's sometimes more important to be able to hear what someone's telling you. They may be telling you something, but you're so focused on trying to get out some verbiage that you're not listening to them. So the listening skills are a real critical part of the process. The other part is just having sound judgment. I know that may sound trite, but someone who has sound judgment, just good common sense, and someone that really has a healthy attitude toward themselves and others and can understand. I mean, because the scenarios vary so much. You'll have a situation where you'll have someone who has a history of some mental health problems, and when you listen to that type of dialogue, it's obvious that they're not with the rest of us. And at times it would be easy to mock or make fun of, and which is absolutely inappropriate. Someone who, where there's a chemical influence, be it illegal or legal or whatever, the plot thickens, to what I would call a desperado who's done some pretty heinous crimes, and what you're trying to tell this individual is that yes, there are people that care about you and you have compassion for them, and yes, I would like to be your friend. And it really takes an exceptional kind of person that can do that, be convincing, be sincere, but can make the distinction between what their role is and not get emotionally attached. The suitcase is essentially a switching station. It could be a standalone phone station, or you have the ability to tap into an existing phone line. So what's delivered is what commonly referred to as the throw phone, because you literally, it's packaged in a manner that you can literally throw it at them. And it's pretty much bulletproof. So that's one way that a phone can be introduced. And then the other way is that if they have a phone there, is that we use that system as kind of our switchboard, and it allows us to continue with the dialogue. First of all, that's not a good sign. When they cut off all communication with the outside, that's not a real good sign. I mean, if you broach that subject to your mental health expert, they would say that's not a good sign. There's other options that we can introduce to try to encourage them to talk to us. One is that you can bullhorn and say, hey, we're out here, we want to talk to you, so-and-so's here, we're here, we want to help you. That's one way, and there's some other ways that you can kind of try to encourage them to get on the phone with us. If you have a situation where they refuse, then really the negotiation process, it's in place, but it hasn't been established, and then you have to look to other means to doing some type of intervention. As far as requests for transportation, be it a car, bus, bicycle, whatever, it's frequently requested. The fact that it's requested doesn't mean that it's going to happen. There's requests, for food, money, transportation, to speak to someone else. Those are all negotiable items. I mean, we read about it every day that the suspect wanted this, and that, and in reality, he may have been allowed to speak to a girlfriend when he was taken into custody. What we try to introduce is that a caring, listening voice that wants to hear what they have to say, and usually the verbal delivery is very slow, deliberate. I hear you. Why don't you tell me more? Sounds like you're angry. Sounds like you're frustrated. I can understand that. And then what we can do is introduce. I use the word introduce one more time. But we can introduce some other agencies that are more conversant with the helping aspect, the follow-up aftercare, if you will, and we can steer them in the right direction. You know, there's a time in law enforcement where that wouldn't have been discussed, but these are different times. There's been a lot of growth in law enforcement and within the community. We're a lot more sophisticated now, and there are folks that have some real problems. Diverting them sometimes from the criminal justice system into a program is more appropriate. And I think if you talk to any of your journeyman police officers now, they would agree, hey, he doesn't need to go to jail, he needs to go elsewhere. So we're familiar with the services that are available, and we have a relationship with those folks, and if it's a situation where, you know, really they needed to be diverted elsewhere, we can make that happen. But I say that in the same sentence I'll say is that we definitely know the difference between a bad guy or a desperado, and it may appear that we're kind of being wishy-washy or kind of too comfortable in our dialogue with him, but we know where they will go. They will either go to jail, or if they become threatening and are antagonizing the situation, or becoming a threat to you, whomever, is that we're absolutely not afraid to introduce the use of force, a more significant use of force. And that's what separates us with law enforcement in general, because one, we have the time, we have the wherewithal as far as equipment, assets, training, and we can make that happen.
There are 6 sergeants assigned to D platoon, and they're designated with the call signs of 20 through 70 David, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70. And it's based on a seniority type of thing. When you came into the unit, were assigned to SWAT as to what call sign you receive. As a sergeant retires or moves out of the unit through promotion or otherwise, attrits out, then the next sergeant in line moves up and he becomes that leaving sergeant's or that departing sergeant's call sign. An officer coming into SWAT typically has 5 years minimum of street police experience. And so they're seasoned veterans by the time they are accepted into the SWAT platoon. Part of the selection process includes the passing of a physical fitness examination consisting of an obstacle course run and a physical fitness qualification test. Both very strenuous tests, and they must successfully pass those before even being considered for a further testing process to determine their suitability to enter the SWAT platoon. So any officer who applies for this unit, almost without exception, in fact I've never seen a case where they haven't been in good physical shape by the time they're selected here. They know they want to come to SWAT, and they prepare to do that through an intense workout program and getting into shape. The post-incident debriefing consists, and I alluded to it in my previous response, of finding a location after the dust is settled, the suspects are in custody, or the incident is completely resolved, where we can sit down and we can critique honestly how that incident went. If we did a good job, then we'll say we did a good job. If we did a bad job or somebody dropped the ball during that process, then we identify that individual and we discuss it. You can't be thin-skinned to work in this unit, because we are in that constant mode of looking introspectively to find out how we can be better. And so that post-incident debriefing is a way of improving our performance and of trying to make sure that we don't repeat any of our mistakes, and capitalizing on our successes also. Over the last few years, as the environment has become increasingly hostile within the city, the fire department has taken a posture that they will not enter a hostile fire zone where there is hostile activity that might endanger the lives of the paramedics. And so they have taken, and correctly so, a position that they will not enter that until it's declared safe. That does not, however, say that what do we do with an injured officer or even an injured suspect until we're able to get a paramedic on scene. And so we saw a very real need to have medically trained people on site that would be able to assist a downed police officer or even a wounded suspect or a citizen and to preserve their life until we could release them to the care of a paramedic or a licensed physician or a hospital care unit. And so we began looking into the EMT program, and it was developed about 2 years ago. It's been very successful. The EMTs are fully equipped with all of the necessary tools to administer life-saving first aid, and as I mentioned, they're supported by the physicians. And it's currently in the process of an expansion. We hope to expand the EMT program throughout Metropolitan Division. Rarely. Once in a long while, if the other two field platoons find themselves depleted of personnel, we may become involved in some sort of an undercover operation, but it's on a fairly limited basis, and it doesn't happen very frequently. I think that maybe the most prevalent thought that is out there in society is that SWAT is comprised of a bunch of beady-eyed killers. Guys that come to work each day hoping to be able to squeeze the trigger and kill somebody. Nothing could be further from the truth. We have a high reverence for life. We pride ourselves on being able to resolve a very dangerous situation peacefully without harm to either the officers involved, citizens, or even the suspect. We take great pride on being able to move stealthily, covertly, undetected, and being able to end a dangerous situation without having to resort to deadly force. Unfortunately, we do have to resort to deadly force, and it's become more and more frequent over the last 12 to 18 months. We've been involved in more shootings in that short period of time than in the previous 20 or so years, 25 years that we've been in existence. So it has been, it's a hostile environment. Dealing with bad guys is a dangerous business, and sometimes we're left with no other choice than to meet the force that they meet us with like force, and frequently that's deadly force. But I would dispel that rumor that nothing could be further than the truth, that we are not that killer type that so often I think is portrayed in the media or whatever source it may come from.
I'll be real truthful with you. In the past, it used to be the new guys were put into the sniper team, and what happened was yeah, they're anxious at first, but later on they want to move on to what we used to have well-defined positions where you were a rear guard, you were an observer, which would be really a sniper. He works with the sniper, he has his own sniper weapon, he has his own assault rifle, but then you have the scout, which is probably a very coveted position because he assists the element leader in scouting out any mission that we may have, whether it be a high-risk warrant or a barricaded suspect or a hostage rescue mission. So now we have tried to emphasize that we want the best to be snipers, meaning they should be the most physically fit. They should be people that desire that position, not necessarily just the new guys. So we have a mix of new people and veteran officers. It's extremely important because of the fact when you deploy your snipers, that's probably the shot that's going to count. You don't take practice shots. You're in position. There's no way you could if you wanted to. There are other weapon systems such as non-lethal weapons that we can take because we're not able to train with them because of expense and just we don't have a lot of these weapons that we use in a non-lethal environment, in a non-lethal situation such as the R one, which is basically a rubber bullet 37 millimeter. Then you have your beanbag rounds that are fired out of the shotguns. Well, we can we can train with those every once in a while, but we just don't have the money to do it. So maybe we'll take that off somewhere away from the scene if we're planning on deploying it, and we can take a couple of shots with it. Well, you can't do that with a sniper because he's going to be deployed in a position where he's also feeding intelligence to our tactical team on what he's seeing. He and his observer are watching because they are deployed as a team. And so he doesn't have that opportunity. So the shot that he takes is going to be a cold barrel shot. So when we train, we take a cold barrel shot. Now we want to know, where does that strike? And there is a difference of where the cold barrel shot strikes as opposed to the next few rounds that you fire on another target for grouping or for a pattern. And that's simply because of the heat of the barrel and the fouling in the barrel. If the weapon is clean, you know, it's going to affect the movement and the trajectory and the spin or revolution of the round. You know, there's rifling in the barrel. If there weren't rifling, the round would not be as accurate. Everything is so important. If the ammunition is sitting in the sun, or it is an extremely hot day or an extremely cold day, it's going to affect the rise or the drop of the round as it moves down range. As I explained to you the other day, the trajectory of the bullet is not flat, it is arced. And so at any point along the range, you're going to have a little bit of rise as it goes out, and then there's going to be a point in time as it goes out, say 1,000 meters, where it's going to drop. Say at 300 or 400 meters, it's going to maybe start to drop. And it depends on the weapon and the velocity and what load the bullet has been, those who make the ammunition, what the load is, 168 grain, 165 grain, 110 grain, 308 ammunition is what I'm talking about. So it all depends on that. So it's important that we train with that cold barrel shot. They provide cover. That's the most important thing because the security and safety of our officers is paramount. But they also provide that intelligence, which also enhances the safety of our officers and, you know, obviously contributes substantially to the success of the mission. So we need to train in that. We need to train the observer to watch. If the sniper should have to take a shot, he needs to watch to be able to tell the assaulters if the suspect is down or when to move. It's critical to know if, heaven forbid, there should be a miss, that there has been a miss. Because the sniper, when he fires that, obviously from the recoil of the rifle, he's going to lose momentary sight on the suspect. The observer shouldn't. He should have eyes on all the time, ideally.
Well, an assaulter basically is a part of the team that goes inside after the suspect. That's probably the most simplest way to put it. Then you have what we call our long rifle positions that would take, you know, a shot from a greater distance. Assaulters would be going inside, you know, making almost physical contact with suspects, whereas the other part of the team would be doing it from a distance. And on that assaulting team, you have different positions. You know, you have the scout, and you have a rear guard, and you have your team leader, and you have different weapons. And so those people train to where if something happened, they could switch at any time and handle any one of those positions. So that's basically what the cross training is. You cross train with the weapons and the positions. So each person knows the next person's weapon and his position. Everyone here probably has they have to have at least 5 years on the department. So you figure if they came on at 21, they're at least 26. That's at the earliest they could come in. But most come, it takes a little bit longer, so they're probably 30, 31. And you stay here for a few years, so probably the average age is up and around the mid-30s, or even late 30s probably. because the 45 it has a larger round and it has more what we call knockdown power. The 9mm, you could hit a person, say in a fatal spot, and he could still continue to function for maybe as much as a minute or more. So he could do a lot of damage in that time, and because he could stay on his feet. With 45, normally if you hit somebody with 45, they're going to go down, and that's back again to that knockdown power. So once a person's down, he's less of a threat than if he's standing. So you have a bigger round, and it's just more likely to put a person down than the 9mm. The other side of it is you have a lot more rounds with the 9mm. So. You'd have to really appreciate it, you'd have to be on the inside as a suspect and see it coming in and feel the effects of it. It's devastating. I don't think there's anybody bad enough to be inside a room, let that come in, and still be ready when officers come in right behind it. I don't think there's anybody that bad, even though you can't prepare for it. Because even in training, if you know it's coming, you still cover your face and turn away. Because it's an explosion with it. The bang it's a small concussion. So if a person can do that, they're really bad.
I first joined a unit when it first started here in Metropolitan Division, September of 1971. When I came into the unit, I was selected as an element leader to start off with because back then there was only 40 policemen, 4 sergeants, and a lieutenant, and they had to select the people. Well, I was fortunate that I was selected as an element leader from the beginning. So I served as an element leader from September of 1971 to January of 1978. And in that time, I was involved in probably what is considered to be the most dramatic, for lack of a better term, incident in the history of our unit, which was the Simonese Liberation Army on May 17, 1974, which involved the kidnapping of Patty Hearst. And we are involved in probably one of the major firefights in the history of our department, which is part of our logo. Our logo has the numbers 41 and 54, where 54 stands for 54th and Compton. This is where the SLA shootout occurred. Well, members of my element actually located the vehicles of where the SLA were at, and we were the ones who actually pinned them down to that particular location. And then with the assistance of patrol officers to cordon off the area, my element was then going to be the entry team. My element had the front portion of the house. The other team came up the rear. So it was a total of 19 of us that were involved in that incident. And it came to a successful conclusion. The other incident that's of major importance that I was involved in also was prior to me coming into the unit. It was in 1969, and that was the Black Panther raid, as it's called, December 9th, 1969, which was at 41st and Central. That location involved a militant group that had 17 members that we were involved in a major firefight. Well, I was the affiant myself and my partner at the time and another officer were the affiants on a search warrant at that location, and we were involved as far as feeding information into to the investigators regarding that incident. Consequently, a search warrant was written up for that location. Actually, 3 locations, that one there and 2 others in the city of LA. All 3 were served at 3 o'clock in the morning on the 9th of December 1969. And once again, there was a major fire that involved with the Black Panther Party. 17 members were eventually arrested. Of the 17 members, the only one that was filed on was the one that my partner and I arrested, which was the individual that had assaulted a lieutenant from our division at the time. I was assigned to Newton Patrol Division. And That's the only one that was convicted. The others were not because of good defense attorneys, I would say. No, we don't have any rambles. There are, you know, the general public looks at the TV programs, the SWAT programs, the movies, the rambles, as you say, the Sylvester Stallone, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, and all of these types of movies. They see these guys and they do all of these tremendous feats that somebody else is doing for them, actually, some stuntman. We don't do that. That's heroics, that's false heroics, you might say. Our guys are true heroes. They do the job when the job's got to be done. They face the bullets, not the stuntman. That's the difference. Okay, that's the difference between us and the real world and the movie world. The public doesn't know that. They look at us as beady-eyed killers because of the movies. We don't take that many lives. We save lives. We like to be considered as a life-saving organization, not as a bunch of guys that are out there to kill somebody. That's not what we do. In 29 years that the unit has been involved, that's been in existence, I think it's 29 years, from 1971 to 1994, you have to figure that out. But in that time frame, I think we're at about, and I'm guessing now because I don't have the figures in front of me, 30 fatalities. 6 of which was the SLA. So that means 24 in 29 years, that's less than 1 a year. That's a pretty good record.